it looks like we're about at 6 o'clock, 6:01 here. So in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started. This will be recorded if you miss anything. So you will be able to go back and rewatch if you are interested in that. But thank you everyone for joining us here tonight. This is the second installment of ChopLocal's educational webinar series this spring. So if this is the second time you are joining us, welcome back. And if this is the first webinar that you're a part of, we're really excited to have you here and hope that you'll continue to join us throughout the next few weeks. My name is Sydney Hadacek, and I am a producer support specialist with the ChopLocal team. So tonight we will be talking about marketing and how to sell your meat online. And this will actually be led by Matt LeRoux with Cornell University. So we're super excited to have his expertise here tonight. You should be able to see on your screens that we have 3 more webinars coming up throughout the next few weeks. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for those as well. If you haven't been able to register for those, you can find all of the links on sell.choplocal.com. And if you're having any trouble with that, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help you out. So before I pass the reins over tonight, I wanted to share a little bit more about ChopLocal. So we like to refer to ourselves as an online farmers market specifically for meat. So our team here at ChopLocal is comprised of farmers and small business owners, much like you all. And so the mission of growing local businesses and selling meat direct to consumer is very near and dear to all of us. We know that there are over $125 million in online meat purchases being made every year, and that number continues to grow. And so our goal is to help you as producers and meat processors go ahead and grab a chunk of that. What ChopLocal offers is a cost-effective solution for you to be able to sell your meat online while also providing you with a high level of support so you don't feel like you need to be that technology expert. We're here to help you make it easier to be able to go ahead and sell your meat online. So if this is of interest to you and you've been looking at ways to sell your meat online, we encourage you to reach out. We would love to chat with you about becoming a vendor on our platform. And so I've kind of put together just a few quick steps on what the beginning of this process looks like. So the first step is filling out our vendor inquiry form. This can also be found on sell.choplocal.com. So if you go ahead and fill that out, will only take a few minutes. Once that is completed, a member of our team will reach out to you either by phone or email to learn a little bit more about your operation, talk to you about what it looks like to be a vendor on ChopLocal, and just really get to know you a little bit more. Once that is done, we usually have interested parties then make a meeting with our Director of Business Development, Mark Putney. Mark is also on here tonight, so you might hear him hopping in here or there, and he'll be able to help us out too. And so as a special thank you for joining us tonight, we are offering free onboarding to future vendors who schedule a meeting with Mark before this Friday, February 24th. And just to clear up any confusion, that does not mean the meeting has to happen before Friday, only that you schedule the meeting with Mark on his scheduling service before Friday. If that is confusing, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to clear that up, but we just wanted to share our appreciation with you tonight and let you know that we are offering free onboarding if you get that meeting scheduled. So I will go ahead with that and pass it over to Matt. If you have questions throughout the evening, the Q&A function, it should be enabled. Just go ahead and pop those in the Q&A feature and we will answer those throughout the evening. But thank you again for joining us, and we're really excited to have you here.
Thanks. Sydney, will you monitor the chat and let me know maybe it?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, so is that just the slide? Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be here. I've been talking to the ChopLocal folks for about a year now, and really glad to see that they're progressing, moving forward, and always happy to talk about meat marketing. It's one of my favorite topics. My other favorite is meat pricing, which I will be back to talk about on a future date. But tonight we're going to talk about marketing, and really, I sometimes like to call it putting on your marketing goggles. I want you to sort of be able to see things through a certain light and develop your marketing strategy more based on what you hear tonight. Just by way of a quick introduction, I'm an extension associate at Cornell University in the College of Ag and Life Sciences. I've also worked for Cornell Cooperative Extension for a number of years. And during those years, I created Meat Suite, which is a registry of farms that sell meat in bulk quantities here in New York and also in North Carolina. I created the meat price calculator that we'll review in the future. And my origins in livestock marketing are with the New England Heritage Breeds Conservancy and the New England Livestock Alliance, where I worked as a beef carcass ultrasound technician. So I was ultrasounding live animals for carcass quality and qualifying them to join our program, which is, buying whole animals and marketing the meat. So that's just some of my background. Really enjoyed that work. To start us off, I want to say my definition for marketing is that it's the process. And that every word is in here is important. So it's a process, meaning it's ongoing. Production work is nice because it has a beginning and it has a very clear end with harvest. But unfortunately, marketing is sort of like a big blob. It's always there. You always have to be listening. So it's this process of understanding what the consumer wants as that changes through time, developing the product to serve that customer, and then getting it to them through your sales channels. And when I say developing the product, of course, we know it's meat, but there's a lot of ways in order to describe and present that product to the consumer. So I'm going to really talk about understanding what the consumer wants, developing the product, and getting it to them. And I'm going to run through a basic marketing plan, and I have 4 components to that plan. There's the strategy, and then there's some market research, and both of those parts really have to do with understanding your consumer, choosing a one to focus on, and then understanding them. We're going to talk about how to create marketing objectives, and then how to take that all out to the public in your action, which is your communication plan. So I do think that creating a marketing plan is a benefit. The more serious you take your operation, the more you should consider it. I don't think it needs to be a 20-page document. I think it could be the front and back of a piece of paper. But the point of creating a marketing plan is to direct your actions, make them more efficient. In other words, for each hour or dollar that you spend on marketing, have that pay off better. And as something to return to when marketing opportunities present themselves, and sort of measure those opportunities against your plan. So I think you should take some time and work on a marketing plan. I like to joke, get your marketing team together, which is probably your spouse and maybe your children, pot of coffee, and sit down and just talk through some of this stuff. That's marketing planning in my book. So we start off with this marketing strategy. And with strategy development, what we're going to do is identify a very specific target audience for our product and for our messages. So we're going to think about consumers that are available in our region, or when we're just selling online, really that's a broad region. But we're going to think about our consumer and think about the choices that they're already making, and ask ourselves some questions about why they make those choices. So with this consumer here, this woman with a baby on her hip, when she's going to buy food, she has a choice, right? She's really literally makes this choice between going to the grocery store, or in this example, going to the farmer's market. And as marketers, we need to think about, well, why would she go to the farmer's market? Like, why would she make that choice? There's no toothpaste or toilet paper at the farmer's market, right? So we know it's not convenient. So why would she go there? And of course, if we were all sitting in the same room together, I'd ask you to give me some answers. But what I usually hear is, she values the quality and the freshness, or maybe she's thinking about buying from a local farm to support local agriculture. So these are just some traits that we recognize. That's why she's making that decision to go to the farmer's market. when she gets to the farmer's market, let's say that she's new to town. She doesn't already know the farms. So this is her first visit to the farmer's market. And we have to ask, why would she choose to come over to our booth or our tent versus someone else's booth? And just thinking about that question, what would make her do that? What, some of the reasons might be our display. Our price board is up front, it's clear. She knows what our prices are. Maybe we've described um, our practices on the farm and our products, right? Maybe it's as simple as getting eye contact and a smile. We're not sitting in the back looking down at our phone or whatever. We're making eye contact. So we're going to think about why the consumer might choose our product or our booth, and then really what we're going to do, and that's what this whole section's about, is when we understand why consumers make those decisions, we want to make sure that we're playing that same message back, that we understand. So when we understood that maybe she's coming to the farmer's market because she wants to support local farms, we're going to make sure that our sign at the farmer's market says our town, right? So we know she values supporting local. We're going to tell her where we're from. So we're just going to play back what we understand. And that's really what all this understanding the consumer and marketing strategy work off of. For each kind of customer that's out there, and we're going to talk about getting into a specific group, there are important, in addition to the why questions, there's important traits about those customers that I think are worth understanding. That's the customer's need, their motivations behind their purchases, their desires, which are the added or the extras that we can give them, sort of the icing on the cake, and then their buying habits. So we need to understand all these traits about our target customers. And if we think about, I'm thinking a little bit about some customers during the pandemic, maybe. What might they say? I need to feed meat to my family, right? I need meat. So the need's basic, and we can understand it quickly. Motivations: when I buy meat, I want to secure a good supply that maybe hold me for a while, and I want to support local farms. So now we know some of their motivations. Desires are anything added. So they might say, I know I'm going to receive some cuts I'm not familiar with. I'd love to have recipes or instructions on how to cook everything that I get. And buying habits: they might say that they prefer to order and pay online, home delivery is ideal, and so on. So think about your target customer when you've identified them. Sit down with that pot of coffee and your marketing team and talk about what's this consumer's needs, motivations, desires, again being the added bonus or the things that really put them over the top. And then they're very practically speaking, their buying habits. How do they shop? Where do they shop? When do they shop? How do they want to get this product from us? And explore those 4 characteristics. So when it comes to choosing a target market, especially when you're online and you have this extremely wide audience, that to me, that's a great benefit. I'm usually talking to people that are marketing within their local region. And so there is some limitation on the size of any given consumer group and the sort of availability of different groups. But online, you have greater reach, right? It's also maybe takes a little skill to reach specific groups. But what you want to do is identify a target audience in order to better understand and then serve them. So I'm going to suggest some broad groups that you might target with local meat. These are just observed through the years, consumers that buy local meat. So one are foodies or local food enthusiasts. Foodies are really experience driven. They want to try, right? That's what a foodie is out to do. They want to try. They want to try a steak from 4 different farms, right? They want to try a new cut that they've never used before. They want to try a new restaurant. They want to try new flavors and new recipes. So foodies are looking for an experience and always out looking for that new thing. Foodies are also probably the least price sensitive group that we're going to talk about, in part because food, of course, they have probably ordinary food in their lives, but this is where food is almost like a hobby, right? I spend my hobby money on car stuff, but the foodies are spending their hobby money on expensive wines and other foods. So think about the experience-driven consumer and what drives their purchases. Then you have the cause-driven consumer, which wants to support a cause that they believe in when they make a purchase. So I think about those causes can be internal to the person or external, meaning to the community. I'll give you some examples. The environment, the humane care for livestock, or the local economy, right? These are things that they might say, hey, when I make a purchase, I want to support local agriculture in my county. So that's cause-driven buyers. And then the internal causes might be their own personal health. A lot of people are eating high protein diets or high fat diets, or seeking a certain production system because of their perceptions about the health factors. So the cause that I'm purchasing to support might be in myself, or that cause might be external in my community, but I'm cause driven with my purchase. The next, we have traditional buyers, which I would say are price, or we could say value driven. Everybody likes value in the sense that the money they spent is worth what they're receiving. But traditional buyers are more like your bulk buyers, people who buy quarters, halves, and wholes. They are looking for the value of buying locally raised meat, like I said, in mostly in quarters, halves, wholes, bulk packs, and they're really more price oriented buyers than the previous two. The next group would be what I'm calling culturally driven. So ethnic and religious buyers. They're really trying to maintain a tradition, a cooking tradition, a dietary recipe tradition. These are buyers that are looking for specific cuts, maybe that are hard to find in regular grocery stores, or not commonly stocked in those stores. And I always like to sort of bring it home for us all and say, if you ate a turkey for Thanksgiving, you're a culturally driven buyer, right? You're maintaining this tradition of having that protein for that holiday, and you can think how that extends out to other culturally driven buyers. I don't know, maybe you had a nice rib roast for Thanksgiving, but a lot of people still get turkeys. Okay, and then we had a new totally new one for 2020. That's what I'm calling the crisis consumer. And we didn't really see these consumers, at least not in my experience until then. But there have been several, supply chain interruptions, interruptions at major processors, rising prices in the stores, and worries over the pandemic in recent years that have kind of created crisis consumers. And probably you've been contacted by these folks because they're looking to secure their supply and make sure that they have meat for their family to eat for the coming term. They're worried about shortages in the future. They're worried about other interruptions. So we have this new group, and I think they're still with us. They're still people who are motivated by securing that supply and feeling sure about it. Now, these are 5 groups that buy local meat. And so I'm going to suggest that for your marketing strategy, you choose probably even a more specific group than one of these. You could start from here. Again, talk about what you have experience with, who you can reach, and then ultimately you're just going to take that group and focus all your efforts on reaching them. And I want to just throw in there are other ways to think. There are other groups to think about, more for selling calves or live animals, but think about breeding stock buyers, how there's certain traits that they're looking for. And if you sort of design your product, that is your calf or your whatever your sows, for that audience, how they're going to be interested in buying it, or feeders sold at auctions and private sales, and then folks that are looking for sort of like hobby or backyard animals, and how there's a certain product that you would create to satisfy that customer, something that's been handled a lot, so it's it's not flighty and so on. So you can kind of take that thinking that I've presented and apply it to other ways that you sell your products. So let's develop a strategy. The way okay, I'm saying why because I had good friends with a vegetable farm that sold it at farmers markets and CSA sales, and they said, "Why do we need a farm marketing strategy? Everybody has to eat." I was like, "Okay, let me give you some reasons." It focuses your message and your identity, and in a way, what a strategy does around your brand is you don't want to think of yourself as we sell to everybody. Everybody has to eat. We sell our product to everybody because that's actually very expensive and difficult. It's hard to reach everybody. You want to carve out your niche and build your identity. So a strategy helps you focus that. It makes your marketing labor more effective. Again, if I had to try to reach everybody in my county, that would be very expensive. If I'm going to focus on just the certain subset of them, each dollar I spend will reach them more effectively. It'll differentiate and position your farm from other products and other competitors. That will actually attract in your target customers. It'll allow you to sincerely understand them so that you can serve them better. And just think about future changes to the marketplace. At that time that my friends sort of threw up that challenge to me, like, why do we need strategy? They were the only vegetable farm in their county and the only vegetable CSA in their county. But within a few years, another farm started, right? So it would have been better for them to have a certain position in the market based on their strategy than to sort of ignore their marketing when that change happened. All right, so this is how we do it. This is a fun exercise I learned when I was a graduate student. I thought it was so great. This is what the industry really uses. They work on these strategy sentences. So what you do is you take all the words that I have in red there and you replace them with your own words. And again, we want to be really specific. We want to get as specific as possible when we write these sentences because we really want to focus on a target market. Hear that word? Target. We're going to look at the bullseye at the center. That's who we want to focus on. So the specificity pays. So we can make a sentence that says, our farm raises, and then we describe our products specifically for this target customer group. Again, we describe them specifically, and then some more about them, who, what, something about their activities, their behaviors, their demographics, or, demographics have to do with, age and gender and ethnicity and things like that. But there's also psychographics. So psychographics are groups of people who behave the same way. So we could say like mountain bikers, right? Mountain bikers might be 50-year-old women and 16-year-old guys, but they're all mountain bikers and they're being marketed to by the same companies with mountain bike products. So we can think about psychographic groups as well. So if we were to work on this sentence for this product, Kraft macaroni and cheese, we would have to write their strategy sentence, right? So they're not a farm. We're going to say, we make, and then we're going to try to fill in these words in red. We make, well, so what do we make? And I wish we were all in the room together because I'd say, all right, throw some words out. But I tell you, I've done this slide probably 40 or 50 times, so I know what you're going to say. People often start to say, hey, we make mac and cheese, right? We make the cheesiest mac and cheese. And then they start to talk about kids. We make it for kids, maybe kids who are picky, want to eat it, whatever. Well, if you really think about it, all right, so we could start writing this, we make the cheesiest macaroni for, picky children who don't want to eat what mom made or something like that. We could think about that a little bit, but if we're honest, kids don't buy this product, parents do. And the parents that buy this are really seeking what? They're seeking, a solution for a meal, one that's quick and easy. This is for, when both parents are working and they pick up the kids and they have to, pick up the kids from school, drive them to practice, drive them to activities, all this, you get in the door, it's like 7:00, you have to make dinner and the kids have to do their homework and go to bed, right? So it's just like, it's nuts. I've been there. And you're not gonna, at that moment, you're not gonna take out the 2-pound chuck roast and the fresh carrots and kale and start preparing this like scratch made dinner. Tonight, forget all that stuff, right? We're gonna go to this box. So what we could say is we make fast, easy meals for busy working moms who have run out of time and give up for today. Give up on that chuck roast and those carrots. That's what I mean by that. Right. So that's a useful sentence. Now, it's kind of funny, and your strategy sentence should be a caricature of your customer. And if you think about when they draw a caricature of you, they usually make you look pretty goofy. It's not flattering. It exaggerates certain features, so we can recognize that it's you. But you also, you might be embarrassed. They might make my nose like really big or whatever in a caricature. That's what you want your sentence to do. You want your sentence to draw a caricature of this customer, because now we can use this sentence to guide marketing decisions, but even production decisions. So when we have the budget to place just one ad in a magazine, I know print ads are kind of ancient, but let's say we're Kraft Mac and Cheese and we have the budget to put an ad in just one magazine. What magazine do we put it in? Well, we look at our strategy sentence. We want to reach who? Busy working moms, right? So if there's a magazine called Working Moms Magazine, that's where we want to put our ad. That's what I mean by efficiency from our marketing effort. We're not going to put our ad in USA Today that reaches sort of the everybody audience, because we're not trying to reach everybody. We're trying to reach busy working moms. What is our ad going to say? It's going to show a bowl of cheese mac steaming hot, and it's going to say dinner's ready in 5 minutes or something like that, right? We're going to tell them that this is a fast, easy meal. So we're going to play that message back to them, right? So just so you get the thinking behind strategy, focused really down on this group, and then play them back what we know they value, what they're seeking. Yeah, and I want to say something else about this. I think I'll say it on the next slide. Well, yeah, I want to take you to, this can also impact production decisions. So ultimately, if you look at the product that I have on there, and if you're of a certain age, you know that you have to boil water, you have to measure milk, and you have to measure butter in order to make this version. That's the version I grew up on. All right, but they understood, why do busy working moms value our product? Because it's fast and easy. How can we improve our product? We can make it faster and easier. So they came out with the microwave cups. So regardless of what you think about that food, understand that they looked at their target customer and they improved their product. So they made a production decision. And I'll tie it to our world. I was working with a beef producer who was selling a lot of freezer trade, quarters, halves, and wholes. And we were at an event and we were chatting together, and he said, that he's moving a lot of animals that way. But he also went on to tell me, oh, it's so hard for families to write that one big check. Even if they're getting a year's supply of meat, it's one big check, right? And I was like, yeah, no, I understand that. It's a great price per pound, and they have a lot of meat, but I understand it can be hard for them to write that check. And then he went on to tell me how proud he is that his carcasses are hanging at like 1,100 pounds. I was like, okay, well, so ultimately, if you're really focused on selling quarters, halves, and wholes, you would consider bringing carcass size down, right? Because it is hard for families to write that giant check. So maybe think about bringing them down a little bit, develop your product to better suit that customer. That's a way that you can take that target audience and use it to influence production. Okay, some reality check about strategy sentences. Your strategy sentence is not for your brochure. That sentence that we just wrote for Kraft, we're not going to share that with the public. That's internal. That's when we have an opportunity or a decision to make, we examine that decision against the strategy sentence. It's not for people to see. The outward appearance of your marketing will not seem unusual to ordinary or to non-target customers. So don't worry that you're going to alienate non-target customers. And when we think about the Kraft Mac and Cheese example, if it was targeted at busy working moms, who else buys lots of Kraft Mac and Cheese? College kids, right? So like when I was a single 17-year-old guy in college, I did not identify with busy working moms, but I understood what could get me fast, easy meals, right? So they identified their product by serving their target customers so well that they drew in other customers. So we're focused on the bullseye. We're going to bring the customers in from those outer rings of our target. Another quick example, because I can't resist talking about it, is the brand The North Face, right? The North Face is focused on people who climb the highest mountains in the world on the most difficult side of the mountain. That's what the North Face refers to, right? The most extreme mountaineers. That's who that brand sincerely tries to serve. And did they alienate everybody else who doesn't climb extreme mountains? No. every undergrad in the United States that had to walk across campus in February said, well, obviously I need a North Face because I have to go outside in the cold, right? So you won't alienate non-target customers by being very focused. In fact, you'll draw them in. I think that's a good example. And don't forget that if you don't have a strategy in place, then you have the default strategy sentence, which is, we sell whatever we have to anyone who will buy it. And obviously that's an inefficient strategy, right? We sell whatever we have to anyone who will buy it. We can do better than that. So in summary, the less that you think you like marketing, the more you need strategy. And I'd say the more you need a plan, because it makes more payoff for each hour or dollar that you spend on marketing. It improves the efficiency of your work and also directs it. As opposed to what can feel very overwhelming. Assess what marketing styles fit your business, your location, and you know, what you're going to be able to maintain over time. When it comes to your target customer, I like to tease, you need to understand them, but you don't need to like them. So maybe you're going to choose a target customer that's viable, even if they're not really exactly your kind of people. Come up with that exaggerated specific market, kind of draw that caricature of them with your strategy sentence, and then focus your marketing and eventually even your production decisions to serve their characteristics, their needs, motivations, desires, and buying habits. That's the end of that section. So I guess if there was a question that I need to answer about strategy? No. Okay. So I'll move on. All right, so now we're going to talk about market research, which is very much still on the vein of understanding the consumer. And I started this off with this slide because I was up at well, I guess I won't say what state I was in, but I was at a state beef producers association meeting, and one farmer at the front of the room, when I got up to speak, he started pounding the table and he said, we need to educate the consumer about the value of, and then he said his state, you know, our state's meat. And so you could put any word you want in there. You could say that, you could say organic, or you could say grain fed, or you could say local, or you could say Iowa raised, right? You could put any word you want in there, but this idea that we need to educate the consumer about the value of our product. And I just want to explore that idea with you. And this is fun. Think about this. It's the screen's black on purpose. All right, you're on a long car ride. You're driving, it's late at night, you're exhausted, you've been driving all day. Tomorrow is, I don't know, some big event, right? And it's really important you have a good night's sleep. And you're exhausted. So you're driving along and then you see that light on the horizon. Okay, there's a place to stay up ahead. So we pull in, we check in. The room is, you know, the hotel is, it's perfectly clean and fine and acceptable. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. So we're just really looking forward to this good night of sleep. We get in bed, and as we lay there, you know, we start to ache because this bed is hard as a rock, right? So this is you. You're like, oh, this bed is hard. You know that feeling? It's like sleeping on a piece of plywood or something. You try to roll over on the other side, and then it hurts over there. All right, so like, all right, I can't even sleep here because this bed is really hard, right? So you go down to the front desk. Oh, it's a mom and pop hotel, right? So pop's at the front desk when you come down there, and you say, hey, you know, this place is nice, but man, that bed's really hard. And he says, oh, I'm so glad you came down here to tell me that. And he hands you a brochure and he says, did you know that very hard mattresses are scientifically proven to be better for you? Did you know that hard mattresses align your spine for better health? People who sleep on hard mattresses live longer. You know, they live an average of 5 years longer, all proven, right? He's excited. He's got someone to listen to him. They earn more money at their jobs. They have lower cholesterol, more energy, and fewer children, right? He's just so excited about these hard mattresses. And you got this brochure now. So as a result of your conversation with him, you go back to your room. Are you going to get a good night's sleep? Or I kind of put it as, now what do you choose? Are you going to sleep on this sheet of plywood, or would you go to another hotel where you could sleep on a big, cushy, comfy bed? And the reason I'm given you this whole scenario, I'd like to take you away from ag for a minute and then bring you back, is to get across that as marketers, we need to know that understanding the consumer is better than educating the consumer, right? We could be taught that hard mattresses are good for us. We still don't want to sleep on them. So that's just a really basic message. And I want to come back to my definition that I introduced earlier. That was my first word. It's the process of understanding what the consumer wants. And so what that reflects is what we call push or pull marketing. Push would be production driven marketing. So it's we're producing it. It's right. It's production driven versus pull, which is market driven production. And I'll give you a summary of each. The push marketing is this idea that, hey, we make this stuff, right? We think it's good stuff. That hotel owner thinks he's got the most wonderful beds out there. It's good stuff. We think you should buy it. So what do? We go where there are people and we try to sell to them. It's expensive and time consuming because our marketing objective is to persuade or to educate or to convince our consumers, right? So production driven marketing or push marketing is the idea that we have to educate these consumers and teach them to value our product. I like to think about, national brands like Crest toothpaste or Tide laundry detergent. They seem to be inventing new versions of their products all the time. And then what do? They give you coupons. They actually will mail little packets of Tide to your house, right? Have you ever had that? Or they hang the bag of Tide off the bottle cap of the one that you're buying in the grocery store. So think about that. They're really trying to convince you that's a good product. They're giving it away. It's expensive. They're discounting it. They're promoting it, and they're doing a lot of convincing. Okay, but pull marketing is this idea that there's a consumer, and the consumer is saying, I wish there was this product, right? So people already want this stuff and they will buy it. So what do? We go where our target customers are, people who already value what we produce and are seeking it, so that we can serve them, right? They're looking for what we've got. They're our target customers and we're going to serve them. It's more efficient. We have a much lower marketing cost because we're reaching the people who value what we want. What's our marketing objective become? We don't have to necessarily tout our product. We have to let them know that we exist and that we have this product. So reaching those customers, letting them know we're here and how to get the stuff. It's a much better way to go about marketing. So my second concept for market research is that it helps us reach the folks who already value our product, and it's much more efficient. And if you're in an online environment, and of course we're going to have to resort to talking about Facebook at some point, you're going to be able to find groups of people on Facebook who already value your product. That really kind of makes it simpler than when you're just sort of in your county and trying to figure out where to find them. But you can find them if you put a little thought into it and brainstorming. How do we find families with young children who would benefit from buying quarters, halves, and wholes? We go to churches, preschools, daycares. We ask if we can leave flyers. We sponsor a little league team, right? We're going to reach that target customer. All right. If you're wondering about, well, what about what I already produce? What you have to do is think about who the target customers are that want what you produce. Where are they? Where can you begin to reach them? Look at market size. How many of them are there? The best message to use when communicating with them. While we're on this topic, I'm going to share 2 more slides that I was presenting on this weekend, and I just really got excited about these slides. I did research for 6 years at a sale barn, at an auction barn on feeder calves. And so I collected for this project 13 characteristics about each pen of calves that was auctioned. And then we, over 6 years, we put that into a statistical analysis. And so we could measure and quantify how each of the characteristics contributed to the value of a calf. So what was the sort of hypothetical difference between a $1 a pound calf and a $2 a pound calf in that study? We find it had to do with good genetics. If the auctioneer would announce what bull it came from, with the animal's body condition score that buyers are looking at in the ring to find if bulls are castrated and they're steers. If animals were weaned And, these are educated buyers. They weren't weaned on the truck ride to the auction. They were weaned. If they were balling, then they know that. The joke up here is that they were weaned with I-81. That's the interstate here. I don't know what it is out where you are, but they're
Yeah,
actually. That's right.
We weaned on the truck ride over here. Yep.
Right. So that's not weaned. It's from the buyer, from the order buyer or any buyer. That's not weaned. Same goes with vaccinated. Yeah, they read the vaccination dates at ours. So if that vaccination date was yesterday, the day before, that's not really a vaccinated calf to that buyer. And if they were actually started on feed. So we found that these were the characteristics that the buyers would bid higher for. And we could group those and say that that's good applied production management. And my point here, and I'll bring this up again when I talk about pricing, is that if you think about the auction, and so many people check the beef box are probably familiar with the auction. The auction is an experiment that you get to watch where consumers display their willingness to pay for items that they want, right? So you can see the better we understand our customer and we design our product to satisfy them, the more they're willing to spend. So when it comes to pricing, you don't have to worry about setting your prices if they feel, like they're on the high end to you. If you can support those prices with your product design and your marketing effort, you don't have to worry. And again, you've seen evidence of that yourself, right? Because you can go to that sale barn and you can see them bid higher for products that they want. That is vaccinated, castrated, and weaned calves. So I think that's just a great way for us to remind ourselves how the rest of marketing works, because that applies to the consumers that are searching online for meat products. I'm going to hop over that slide and come to the summary slide to say that use market research. That is, just listening to what's going on with consumers, looking at what their comments are in Facebook groups, looking at magazine articles, hearing what's being said about cooking, about cuts, about meat, and keeping your product in that market-driven space. Educating the consumer is okay when it's helping them get what they already want. So here I was like kind of bashing educate the consumer, and I stand by that. But I just wanted to clarify, if your consumer wants to try a new cut of meat and you're giving them a recipe, you're not convincing them, you're helping them get what they want. So don't worry about, a certain level of educating the consumer in that sense. What you're not trying to do is prove to them, that your production system or whatever your breed is the best. That's the difference. So moving ahead into objectives. Now, first two were really all about the consumer, which is what your marketing effort should revolve around, is understanding the consumer. The next is just going to be, I think, a tip on how to make sort of the process of marketing activities a little bit easier. So I'm going to say that an objective pays off when it's specific and measurable. And like I said in that earlier slide, the less that you think you like marketing, the more you should have marketing objectives, because they make the job simpler and easier. Marketing to me, it just feels like, this big giant gray cloud. It's hard to know where to begin and when it's over, and it's sort of that. But objectives chop it up into blocks so you can understand it. So I'll take us away from ag for a second and just say, maybe you've said, hey, I should put some money in savings. I've said that. And did I save any money after I said that? No, I did not. Right? This is a very vague thing for me to say. I should save some money. All right, but maybe I said, I will put money in savings every month. All right, so I think I'm a little bit more likely to save some money now, because I've said I would do it once a month, I guess. So this is a little bit better. But what if I said, I'll put $50 from my first paycheck into savings every month beginning in September? By writing an objective that's specific and measurable, I'm more likely to succeed, right? And that's what I mean about the marketing. If if I hit September and I get my second paycheck and I've only put $20 into savings, I know what I need to do, right? I could revisit this if 50 is not reasonable. I could revisit my objective and adjust it, but this tells me what to do, when to do it. It tells me if I'm succeeding, and I know how to adjust the plan. So work on marketing objectives. Objectives don't have to strictly be sales based. It's really tempting to just think about, how many dollars or how many units we want to sell in a given amount of time. It could have to do with contacting potential customers, or making posts, making updates to the website, just other kinds of objectives that aren't solely sales based. Objectives make sense with a production schedule and a marketing budget. So I like to see a budget attached to any given objective. And what I mean by production schedule is understanding when you're going to harvest animals and building marketing activities around that. So if we know we're going to harvest 3 a month every month for the whole year, now we have our production schedule, and we're going to sort of try to build marketing objectives around that production schedule. Key ingredients to have in a marketing objective are identifying the audience, that's your target consumer, but it might be a subset of your target consumer, setting up that measurable goal that you want to accomplish, setting a timeline to it, assigning it a budget. And it is important to, assign marketing dollars, or I should say assign farm dollars to marketing. And then when you have all these components, you can develop a really cool action. So I'll give you a little example here. If we said we want to profitably market 12 head of beef this year, we could say, I want to get 48 beef quarters sold in the fall. And I define the fall as from September 1st through December 20th. I want to be all done by Christmas, like all those quarters are done and gone. My audience is rural families with young children who don't yet know about my farm. And I'm going to give myself a budget of $50 a week for those 15 weeks in the fall, or any way I want to slice it at $750. So again, with your marketing team, understanding your consumer, looking at your strategy, you sit down with this objective, and now you brainstorm, what is the best action that we could take? How are we going to reach rural families with young children who don't know about our farm, and sell beef quarters? So you just brainstorm, and I've done this with groups. They come up with great ideas, like having an open farm day, let people come out, visit the farm, cooking up burgers. That's some of our budget is going to be going into our own ground beef, serving burgers on that day, having a raffle for anyone who puts down a deposit on a quarter that day. If you put down a deposit, we'll put your name in the raffle for a something meat relevant, like a cutting board or a barbecue grill or whatever. So where are we going to put up flyers and announcements? We're going to put them at daycares, at churches. Some school districts will, once they approve it, they will let you send a flyer home in every backpack. So we'd certainly look at that, right, for our open farm event. So brainstorm, get creative, come up with a really innovative solution. So to sort of cap it all up, we have this marketing plan, and each section had a different role. And what we have to do is sit down with our marketing team, work on a strategy sentence, identify a target audience, do some market research to understand that consumer, their behaviors, their preferences. That I have to laugh a little bit. Market research can include talking to your current customers if they fit the profile. And I remember recently a farm said to me, "Are we allowed to ask our customers?" I said, you can survey your customers, right? But you can also kind of eavesdrop on Facebook groups, or look at again magazine articles. Sorry, search keywords online and see what's going on, what people are saying. So understand our consumers and our strategy sentence. Formulate some objectives, maybe just start with a few over the next 3 to 6 months. Write some objectives about what you need to get done. Set timelines and budgets to those things, and then brainstorm to come up with really innovative and efficient solutions to reach consumers. And so I'll kind of switch over to questions there, but I do want to offer my email address on this last slide. Anyone's free to email me if you think of a question later on and you want some clarity. You go ahead and email.
Yeah, perfect.
I think I finished a couple of minutes faster than I expected.
That's all right.
Maybe there'll be some cool questions.
Yeah, good questions. So if anybody, you can go ahead and put your questions in the question box there, and we'll go through those. Yeah, so one question that came in, texted me, was the a question about how big the retail, like how big the market is. And so you know, there's a lot of folks that are in kind of, they kind of have a an area, a larger city next to them, and they are, that they're kind of thinking, hey, there's a big city, and but there's somebody else that's been selling direct to consumer, been doing a bunch of farmers markets, in that big city. We'll just say Chicago, for example. And they say, well, I don't know if I can ever get there because, this other farm is out there and they've been selling for 15 years. And so my response, I would like to hear your response on it. My response is the market is big, and so encourage everybody to participate in that market. If that's your goal, participate in that. The market is big, and there's lots of opportunities there. In that direct to consumer. So Matt, I'd like to hear your comments on that.
Yeah, I think I have a few comments. One is about market sizing. So I actually had to do this for one branded program, try to estimate the size of the market area that they wanted to serve. And, I started with census data on that region, but then I paired that with studies that you can find for free online that say, X% of consumers prefer this product or that product. I looked at USDA data on consumption, and I came to ultimately you come to the same conclusion. There's a lot more customers, even as you narrow them down into very specific preferences based on research and census data. There's still a lot of people out there. Another way I like to market size is to think about how many units I want to sell and how many people it would take me in a week to get that much sold.
Yep.
So, sometimes it's a little surprising. Like, we really only need 40 customers a week.
Yeah.
We'd be selling all we could produce at 40 customers. So now to get 40 customers, you probably have to reach 4,000, something like that. But there's more than 4,000 out there, right? So that's one comment. And the other comment is, even when there are other brands and other products on the scene, that's where choosing your target customer, understanding them, and building your identity around serving them will really pay off, because there is room for innovation. There's room for, I don't think you can come in and try to be identical to the current vendor, but you can come in with some points of differentiation. And I'll give you an anecdote that's very real. In my county, the population's 100,000 people, and we had many vegetable farms selling vegetable CSA shares. In fact, at one point, it was something like 450 CSA shares were being sold. And as a percent of the population, that's significant.
Yeah.
But this new vegetable farm started up and started a CSA, and they were seeking 75 members. They targeted kind of like 30 somethings, young couples, single people. They did their CSA vegetable distribution at a really popular bar, like in the alley next to the bar. They sold, when everyone said our market was completely saturated for CSAs, they filled their shares, right? They came in, they had quality. They came in with a different target audience and an innovative way to get the product out. And they sold out, and they're still operating. So there's always some room.
Good. Hey, Sydney, if you can minimize that, so we can't see it all that slide. I know. Amy has a question about how to find out more about an individual target market. So how do we, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but your target audience can it really goes back to that value statement, right? Like in defining that first.
Yeah. So, how do you learn more? I mean, it's probably going to be a group that you are somewhat familiar with. Um, you ask people, you talk to them, you listen to what they're saying. Um, you can search keywords online, and there's a lot of times that primary research you have to pay for, but then there's sort of like secondary level. So like Time Magazine will do an article about, for lack of a better example, grass-fed beef, right? And Time Magazine will cite some university or some private study that states, 8% of consumers prefer yada yada. So you go and you kind of start digging it out that way, just with keyword searches. And really, I've done feasibility studies for branded programs, and
Mm.
I kind of start at the bottom there, searching online, looking around, find some groups on Facebook that you can join and cruise through what they're talking about. Call people that that sort of fit that profile, and it's really just a lot of listening. Look at what the trends are in cuts and recipes, cooking styles. Remember when oh, I forget, I can't think of the name of it. What's that plug-in hot pot thing, right?
Oh yeah.
What's that
Yeah.
called?
I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you couldn't you couldn't turn around without someone talking about that and what the
Yeah.
recipes they liked. So you just you hear what they start to say. And I'd taken the slide out because I was worried about time, but think about one target audience I like to talk about is mothers with young children. Right? So you're coming up with your product. You're going to make sausages. Are you going to make hot and spicy sausages? No, you're going to think about mothers with young children don't want hot and spicy sausages. How
Yeah.
do they want their product? Maybe they want a 1 pound bulk, but that's not actually very convenient. So the ideal way for that customer maybe to get their um, sausage would be maybe it's in links, maybe it's fresh, not frozen, right? Like that's not a good application for online sales, but for local sales, you know, um, maybe like I have 2 kids and they're getting older, so we don't want 1 pound packages of anything. We want 2 pound packs, right? So you just think about that consumer in every way you can, how they're going to use this when they get home. We get all our ground beef in 2 pound packs because we don't need 1 pound packs.
Yeah.
But that's some brainstorming and that's some research.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to cut in. We'll continue to answer questions, but if you need to hop off or you're wrapping up for the evening, I did just post a link in the webinar chat that includes a link to fill out a post-webinar survey. So we'd love to hear your feedback if you have the time to go ahead and fill that out. So we really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah. It's still big on my screen here, Sydney. So if you can, like, I don't know, it's weird. There, make it smaller. I don't know. It's
okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay, so Jamie has a question more about there's just a lot of folks that just don't know where their food comes from. And so, just feeling like she's got that need for education to those customers to really educate them on where their food comes from and how she produces how they produce any of their products. And so what's your feeling on the best marketing strategy for that?
Well, I don't want to totally cop out here, but it's sort of your target customer, if they value where their food comes from, they'll already be in that position. I just think I'm getting hung up on the idea that I'm going to try to reach consumers who don't understand agriculture to try to convince them about the value of agriculture.
Yeah.
Your meat has other characteristics, so it's delicious, it's juicy, it's well finished, it's a certain breed, or it's from your region. So there are other characteristics that might draw folks to your products, and they may not understand agriculture, and you might be able to live with that. Kind of makes me think about my comment earlier. You have to understand them. You don't have to like them.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of more important that you understand that consumer than that they understand you
Yeah.
or what you do on your farm. Yeah, so that's kind of where I land on that, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah. And Jamie, if you can follow up with an email or give me a call later on, and we can talk through that a little bit more if you have other questions.
Yeah,
Margaret.
I'll say this because it reminded me. I do think that it's cooperative extension and perhaps ChopLocal and ag nonprofits. I think it is their job to educate consumers about the value of ag, but that takes a lot of money, and that's why we get grants, and that's why we have websites and brochures. But let those agencies that are mission driven and not profit driven take on educating consumers about ag, while you understand consumers so that you can sell your products to them. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to throw that out.
No, that's good. That's good. Margaret has a question. What would you recommend marketing wise to put in the box when you're shipping? Is this a storytelling moment, an invitation to order again? And I'll just say yes. So for all of our, Margaret, you'll be getting this because she's a ChopLocal vendor, and you'll be getting these in the mail pretty soon. But you'll get there's a card like that, and then on the back it says thank you, and then if they take a survey, they get a coupon code for things off of their next order, and so that's the invitation to buy. And I would just say that the customer who just purchased from you is your best advocate for your next customer, and so definitely market to them because they're going to tell their friends, man, I had this steak, or I had this rack of lamb, and oh man, it was awesome. And where'd you get it from? Well, I got it from Margaret out in Kentucky. Well, I want some of that because I really like Margaret, or I really like, and so it's that generator. And so what's your feeling? Am I on?
Yeah,
something?
I would create a card similarly for my farm that did, feature pictures and tell our story. It's an opportunity to create a relationship. Again, folks that are coming to ChopLocal, they're buying from an identified farm, right? Instead of, from an anonymous source. So they value learning about that farm, that operation, and so on. So communicate that. And then, like Mark just said, that customer that just purchased a product from you is, you want to maintain them, because repeat customers are much less expensive, if you will, to acquire than brand new customers. So yeah, you certainly want to build that relationship, let them know that you're there. And if do folks get access to the buyer's email address?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So
absolutely.
I would put a reminder on my phone to email them 5 days after they got it and say, hey, I hope you enjoyed it. Did everything arrive as expected? And I would just contact. I don't know if you guys recommend that or not, but it's kind of like the postcard, but it's even more active, and let them feel like, wow, the farmer emailed me. That's where I want to get my food from.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of them here coming in here, so I'll try to go through these pretty fast. But one that I really want to touch on here is the decline in Facebook algorithms. Can narrow down those ads, and it kind of narrows down that effectiveness of those Facebook ads specifically. But those, like you mentioned, those groups are good to get into, but you got to stay with them all the time. The one thing that we've seen is SEO is really important, and I'll just put a plug in for ChopLocal because we're really good at SEO, and we will rank really high on that. And I just had I had a customer call into the helpline, and I grabbed it, and he was asking about, some products and from one of our vendors. And I said, how did you find us? And he says, oh, well, Google. And I said, okay, good. So just seeing that search engine, just organic search is been really good. What's your feeling on the decline in the algorithm in Facebook, Matt?
I do not keep current with social media marketing, details like that. I see you've got someone that's going to come and speak on that. I
Yeah.
think they would speak to it better than I know how to.
Okay. Good. So Nick has a question here about the high cost of I'm sorry, Jason has a question about the high cost of quarters, halves, and wholes, or half hogs, or larger. And so, what are your thoughts on eighths and sixteenths, and then moving them up to those higher ones? I guess my so if you're a ChopLocal vendor, what I would suggest is you have a representative eighth. So if you're USDA processed, obviously if you're going through a custom exempt locker, then you're limited to those, a share. But if you're within a USDA processor, I would encourage you to create a representative eighth or a representative quarter, or 16th, that has, X amount of pounds of ground beef, chuck roast, tri-tip, whatever it is, and steaks, and put that in there and let the customer choose those smaller items. And then they pick this box for $150 or $200 or whatever. And then they can have those different options. But Matt, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I totally concur. So, you all can go look at meatsweet.com. It's only available to New York and North Carolina at this time, but and it's just a directory. It's not an e-commerce site. But what we found during 2020, when all these new consumers were coming out of the woodwork for locally raised meats, was that building just assorted bundles fit different people's budgets and their freezers. So yeah, 16ths are fine. At the point that you hit 16ths, I kind of stopped calling them fractional things. Halves and quarters is about, eighths maybe, but then just bundles, assorted bundles, and you can build those bundles. Again, think about the different kinds of consumer. So you might think about making some bundles that are more sort of value oriented with roasts and a lot of ground. You might think about sort of griller packs that are more steaks and everything, but you can kind of sort things out into bundles and price them and size them differently so that there's a lot of availability for consumers. And I love bundles. I think quarters and halves are just like the top way for the farm and the consumer to sell and to buy. But then after that, bundles are a good solution.
Let's see here. Just going through. What avenues do you seem to gather more interest for marketing, like farmers markets, Facebook? What's your gut instinct on kind of direction to focus that marketing?
Well, I would think about, we're talking about maybe an online setting versus a local setting. So there might be different approaches there, but think about where you're going to get the visibility with your target consumers. So just, I don't know if that's answering the question super well, but the spaces where your target consumers are already getting, I like to talk about looking at complementary brands. I always say it locally, like, who else has your target customer, right? Like if you've identified foodies as your target customers, where else, what other businesses around you, whether online or locally, have your target customers? So I'll tell you an example from a pork farm here in my area that later on started their own processing, and they were doing a lot of charcuterie products with their pork. So they went to, and obviously as soon as you say the word charcuterie, you're into foodies.
Yep.
Pâtés and dry cured things and all that. So they went to a local wine shop that does tastings on Thursday nights. It's actually really popular. They get a good crowd for tasting night on Thursday. And the farm said, can we come to tasting night and pass out hors d'oeuvres in between the wines that they taste, like whatever it is, 4 wines that night. Can we pass out hors d'oeuvres? We'll come and we'll do it completely for free. So the wine shop said yes, right? I mean, this is a talk about a innovative solution. They thought about their target customer. They could have set a budget, right? So they went and they passed out pâté on crackers and other items between wines. They directly reached foodies at, frankly, pretty low cost. So you want to think about the same thing, getting that visibility with your target audience through innovative thinking. And that might be showing up online in the right places or showing up in person at the right places.
Yeah. Good deal.
The brainstorms around the kitchen table with your marketing team will pay off.
Yeah.
If you come up with something wacky, to me, it sounds great. Just do that.
Write it down stick it on the refrigerator and then chew on it for a little bit and then keep coming back to it. And then it might spark another idea, right? Like that one was maybe a little off the wall there, but the next one may not be. So, let's see here. So, one question here. Do you have any ideas, suggestions, or recommendations for marketing ground beef to families who think very, very lowly of it?
Again, that's kind of a convincing question.
Yeah.
I think you could, the very traditional ideas, recipes, usage ideas, I'd sell it in bundles, but I don't know if your energy is best spent trying to convince people who think lowly of ground beef. It's more like identifying families that are ground beef users. I guess, I don't know who thinks poorly of it, but I do know this. I'll ask rooms of producers, what's your fastest selling cut? And some of them will say ground beef. And I'll ask a room of producers, what's your slowest, worst selling cut? And some of them will say ground beef. It's a weird cut in that respect because I buy a quarter of beef for my family, but we always have to supplement with like another 40-pound pack of ground beef. So I don't know how you specifically identify those heavy users of ground beef, but I don't think I would invest energy in trying to convince others about the value of ground beef.
Yeah. What are some publicly available sources to find market data?
Okay, here's a trick you can do. Again, the way that I would do it, if because you don't want to pay for data, please don't pay for data. You can go online and find those publicly available articles that cite, again, I referenced Time magazine or whatever, just some of these publications that are online that are free to access. They may have paid for research data for their article, or at least they interviewed someone to get it. But you can kind of get it as a secondary source that way. The other thing that you can do is you can go to a university library, and the universities are paying to access that data. And when you go there, you can ask a librarian to help you, and then you can get access through the university. That way you're not paying. So that's how I get more like that primary source data that's not publicly available is through my university library.
Yeah. So the question here is, so Robert has many loyal customers but find about half of the potential customers don't know how to cook lamb or are afraid to purchase because they don't have experience cooking it. But they're curious. And so they try to educate them on cooking methods and decide and help them purchase. But any thoughts on marketing to customers who are willing to try but lack the knowledge?
Yeah, no, I think what he's doing sounds exactly right. And so what I'm hearing is they're interested, they want to try lamb. So you're not doing any convincing. Now, you have to provide the means, right? You have to
Yeah.
get them there. So teaching them recipes. Look, you could do a cooking demo. I don't know if you're at a farmer's market or at a butcher shop but you can schedule it as a one-time event. You can do it at the market, but you can um, you could I could come up with cool ideas, whether you set a budget and you have an event. um
Yeah.
but you could also just do a simple cooking demo at the market, let them try samples right after you're done cooking it. So there's lots of ways you can make a video and post it to your Facebook. Here's me cooking a lamb chop. I want it rare. Here's how I do it. um and I think he's sounds like he's already on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
lamb's funny. I always joke, like people don't really buy lamb to eat on a Tuesday night. It's like I've actually seen some survey data. Lamb is like for a special occasion or a weekend. Lamb hasn't become one of the big three staples. It's beef, pork, and chicken.
yeah.
But lamb's so great.
Well, and that's, I mean, some of that is cultural because in other cultures that is different. So,
That's
um,
right.
so that might be a different different target market there. So, so if you already know what who your target audience is, how do you find out where they live? Like, how do you find out? Okay, I know where what my target audience is, but I do not know where they live.
Um, you don't necessarily have to know where they live, but you have to know where they gather.
Yep.
So, we could think through different groups. We've given some examples, families with young children, daycares, churches, schools. But I've had people focus on a target market of, for lack of, fitness people. I can't. What's that like? Really trendy kind of workout gym where it's like you have to flip over giant tires and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that called?
Like the Spartan and yeah.
Whatever that is. So,
Yeah.
that's where all these people that are eating high protein diets gather,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
so you have to brainstorm a little bit like, but where do these people gather? Who, think about who else has this target customer.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to know where they live, but you can reach them through these other places. And again, I'm not that familiar with Facebook, but they gather in certain places on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
They gather at wine shops when they're
yeah,
foodies.
right. Let's see here.
CrossFit, that's what it is.
There it is. Yeah. My kids
Sydney,
like
you just left us dangling there. You knew it all along and you
I
didn't
know.
say it.
Sorry. I see Nick has asked, or I see this question twice. Other ideas for gathering consumers' wants or needs other than local email lists or surveys?
For gathering, yeah, well, let's see. For gathering their wants and needs. Yeah, just I guess I'd say the conversational thing, talking to your customers. If you're selling a customer a certain cut, you might say, how are you going to use that? What made you pick this cut? I think you can survey them without surveying them, right? Through conversation. Also listening. I remember standing at a Christmas party. You could have knocked me over with a feather because this woman next to me started saying, you know what I want? I want a place where I can buy locally raised produce in the winter. I mean, she just said it. And I'm sitting there listening, right? And that was before we had winter farmers markets and winter CSAs in this area. So
yeah.
there she was. I mean, standing next to me, I'm just kind of listening in on her conversation. So you have to sort of actively listen around you. I know that sounds like a lame answer, but it's real.
Yeah. Question here about marketing open farm days or have events that where you have cooked foods or samples. And so, yeah, we would encourage that for if you're having those samples or whatever, that you have a food license to do that. But yeah, it's hard to market those because they get shut down pretty fast.
Comply with county and town
Yeah.
health regulations, or
Yeah.
not suggesting that you don't.
Yeah. But how do you get the word out on some of those? Because sometimes they just get shut down like right away.
And I haven't experienced that. What do you mean by that?
Well, I've seen something on social media where they just, they just start going, it starts going south pretty fast after somebody posts one. Yeah.
No, I haven't encountered that, but yeah, I mean, make sure you're serving food safely and legally.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got insurance on your farm, that you've got clear signage, all the things that you need to do when you bring people on the farm.
Yeah.
When vendors or people that are selling have a large variety of products, maybe from, multiple different species of livestock, how do they narrow down their customer?
That's a great question. So I think you should really just have one target consumer that that you're describing their characteristics, except for when you have products that are dramatically different, or that you have customers that are separated by space and time. So let me give you some examples. If I have grass-fed beef and I have honey from my farm, I might have two separate target customers for my marketing, right?
Yeah.
If you have lamb, beef, and pork and chicken all from the same farm, I would have one target consumer. We're selling meat. We're talking about, where we are and what our production system is, and how great our meat is. That's a single customer. If we're going to have a radically different product, there's room for two. I would argue there's actually room for one with beef and honey, because we're still local and so on, but I would accept two. The other way I would have possibly have two target consumers is if they're separated by space and time. So like if I'm trying to market my stuff in my local town and also in New York City, I would probably identify and use a different strategy in New York City than I would in my local town or my local county. So with that said, we all, if we're selling by the cut, we all have a diverse array of products, right? And we're still going to look at a single target customer. And so the same applies for other like products.
Yeah.
Because managing one strategy is already a job. Managing multiple, is too much.
Yeah.
But multiple species of meat, I think you could pull off one.
Yeah.
So one more question here is, should marketing be identity driven or product driven, or is it dependent on target audience?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's product or identity. I would say it's consumer driven. And then after that, that's a great question. I don't have a slick answer for. I would be consumer focused, and you're not going to change your identity. You should choose a target audience that's suitable to you. I kind of joked, you may not like them. Like if I were to target New York City consumers, they may not be my buds, but they're a viable target customer. And I'm not going to change the identity of my family farm or something to suit them, but I am going to craft my message to serve them. So I would just start consumer focused, and that's going to direct the communication, which is how we describe our products. So just go that way.
Yeah. So Gene's got a really good question here. It just came in. How do you suggest selling meat products when you don't raise a year-round supply?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're going to, I think that's probably more challenging in an online setting than in a local setting. Online, you're going to have to pull your products down or pull your availability down for some point, but you're going to want to at least maintain that presence. I think, I think off the cuff here, because I haven't encountered that question before, that communication is going to be key.
Mhm.
So you can manage consumer expectations for product availability. But of course, you're going to keep your activity constant throughout the year. You don't want someone. I mean, I do this all the time, right? I find out about a business, I do look them up on Facebook, and they haven't posted on Facebook in 6 months. I think they're gone or they're done. So you're going to want to maintain a presence and an activity, but with clear communication, like no product until April, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. Build some desire, build some what do I want to say, some like we got to jump on this now.
Anticipation.
Yeah,
Anticipation.
like
Yeah.
through an email, update, like, hey, we don't have any locker dates for a few, for another month or whatever, and then get people to sign up to buy, and then announce it like, hey, now we have product back in the freezer, like get your orders in now. We do have a really cool feature on ChopLocal when on all the products, if they're out of stock, you can get notified when they're back in stock. So then they automatically, the customer that signs up for that or clicks that little button can get that. They can get an email notification that, hey, that's back in stock. So that's a good deal. One last question here. What are some consumers that basically a target audience for goat meat?
Well, if you're asking, you probably already have some hint, right? What I most often hear is that it's the ethnic or cultural consumer, people that are used, grew up eating meat. They want to, goat meat. They want to keep getting it to keep those old recipes going. There are, Muslims will want goats on certain holidays. Of course, you're going to probably want to try to find halal slaughter or an acceptable means of slaughter. So yeah, I think in some ways goat kind of, out there in the conversations among goat producers, we know who the target audiences are. I've heard tales of Amish growers in Iowa putting signs out in front written in Spanish that say they have goat meat available, right? In order to reach their Spanish speaking consumers that are seeking goat meat. So we tend to think about it as ethnic or cultural consumers. And I think, you have to find pockets where those people shop, where they gather, and how to reach them.
Gene has a follow-up comment on that. He says, goat is the #1 meat consumed worldwide. I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that was very good. Well, do you have any other final thoughts or anything? We're getting kind of we're done with those questions. If anybody has any other questions, they can contact us anytime, and we can follow up with those. Any of those questions. Sydney, do you have anything?
I don't think so. If people are still on, I think we've still got a few last people hanging on here. Certainly reach out if you have any questions about upcoming webinars or anything else related to ChopLocal. But thank you for being here and hanging out late with us.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for an awesome presentation, and we look forward to that meat price calculator, and we'll be having that coming up in the future here. And
all right.
Yeah, and so thank you. Yes, thank you. And Sydney's giving away all kinds of onboarding. So, if you sign up for a meeting, she's giving away free stuff. So I did not authorize that. That was not.
Oh, please.
So yeah, if you're still on, if you want to chat more, would love to talk to you about ChopLocal and how we can help you sell more meat online.